Thank you for joining the Country Cabin Retreats podcast. What is love? Today we are joined by Stacy Hubbard, who is Gottman Institute consultant and master trainer, and has translated the Gottman Institute's 50 years of relationship research into a framework that supports singles in finding healthy, happy partnerships. Welcome to the second Country Cabin Retreats podcast. Today we are very happy to have Stacy Hubbard on the call. She is a Gottman Institute consultant, licensed marriage and family therapist, and has done extensive research in the Gottman Method and has translated that work to singles. So we can actually take the Gottman Method and, as a single person, use it as almost a lens to run through what are those healthy behaviors that we're really looking for in those long-term partnerships that we're seeking. So thank you so much for joining us, Stacy. We're very happy to have you on the call, and more importantly, at the retreat that we're going to hold here in Kananaskis, Alberta, in April. It is for singles who are looking for healthy relationships and really want to do a deep dive into what that looks like with our world expert in singles research. So thanks so much, Stacy. What draws you to single work? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me and happy to be here. I've been a marriage and family therapist for over 20 years now. Time flies, and just really been using the Gottman method in my couples work since graduate school in early 2000s in Portland, Oregon. That's always been my lens of, working with couples is understanding what healthy relationships look like and also what unhealthy relationships look like, because that's a lot of the research. And then, I worked doing a lot of couples workshops we call it the Art and Science of Love. It's a 2-day couples workshop. So I was actually doing one in New York City in Manhattan, which was a big difference from where I'm a small town Oregon girl in the big city. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. But at that workshop, I talked to the doorman at the hotel where we were putting on this couples workshop, and he asked me about the workshop. And he's like, "Oh, I don't have a partner. I'd really love to get that kind of information. Can I come to that workshop?" And I said, "Actually, no, you have to have a partner." Which is true. And also it made me realize, like, oh, actually this kind of information would be really good for single people. And I was single at the time, right? That's the other piece, I think, of my backstory is, so I was single for 8 years in my 40s, but really I always wanted to be in a long-term, I mean, I had long-term relationships, but I had never been married. And I always wanted that kind of really deep connection, commitment to get married. So at that point, when I started creating this singles workshop, I was still single. And so it really meant a lot to me, like on a deep level. And luckily, I met my partner, and we've been married for about 3 years now, together for actually a little over 5.5 years. So, but that's a big piece of why I wanted to do the singles work, right? If that makes sense. So it's
Absolutely. Yeah.
close
It
to my
sounds
heart.
like, yeah, you'd been immersed in the couples work for so long, and you were steeping in it, and you knew you wanted it for yourself. And then that almost like passion for wanting it for yourself also helped you develop these programs for other singles to support them.
Yeah.
Really cool. So what continues to inspire you the most about this work? You found your partner, you've kind of applied the Gottman method, applied the lessons in love for singles when you were looking for your partner, or you can tell us a little bit about that story there. But what continues to inspire you most about helping single people?
Yeah, great question. I think it's knowing that finding a meaningful, stable, healthy relationship is possible, and that I want people to have that safety, that feeling of like being in a high trust, safe, stable relationship. because I've seen very, very closely and intimately what it's like when it's not stable, when it's unsafe, when it's destructive, or painful. And so just being able to help people understand what to look for, right? Like, what is a healthy relationship? What is a high trust relationship? Again, not that it's always perfect, right?
Mhm.
There's
Mhm. Yeah,
no
absolutely.
there's
Mhm.
no such thing as like perfect relationship where there's no conflict or no issues that you have to work through. Believe me, it happens.
Mhm.
You got to work through that stuff. But I guess to answer your question, it is about like I luckily from the Gottman research know in detail what successful, healthy relationships look like, and know what to avoid as well. So I want to help people understand that so that they know what they're looking for, they know what to avoid in themselves and in a potential partner. Mm. And then helping them get into stable relationships because, if they want to, let's say, get married and have kids, they're going to
Mhm.
be a better unit to raise healthy, stable,
Family unit, yeah.
right, in the world to make the world a better place. Or even because my husband and I don't have kids.
Mhm, mhm.
And that so but we are helping other people. My husband's a drug and alcohol counselor. I'm a marriage and family therapist, right? So we have a safe, stable place to come back to literally at the end of the day where we support each other. We have peace, right? So that enables us to go out and help others. So it's sort of like no matter what kind of situation you're in, being in that safe, stable, healthy relationship makes you better able to be in a world and spread love and joy and kindness. So anyways, that's a big piece of it. Yeah.
That's so incredible. It's like working from the inside out on the home level. And what I love about what you said in the beginning there is this element of possibility, like there can be a lot of frustrations in the dating world and just relationships generally. And so, it's easy to get discouraged. And, this work teaches us that it is possible. It is a level of work and commitment to that work and to one another and the unit that is, but it is possible. And so I just love that energy of possibility too, where it's like, you can't actually have this for yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So, from your perspective, you've done so much research and you work hand in hand with the Gottman Institute, you're a consultant with them. You guys are so committed to research. You continue to be committed to research, and the Love Lab still exists, and all of these beautiful research-based programs. As relationships can continue to evolve over time too, like things are different now. So, what are the biggest struggles that you think singles are facing right now when it comes to dating and connection?
Oh, wow. Good question. So let's just acknowledge that, yeah, dating is it can be difficult, right? It's anxiety producing, it's frustrating, um, at times where maybe you're really looking forward to maybe meeting somebody or you think this could be a match and then you meet them in person and it just kind of fizzles or it just doesn't feel like a connection. Then it's like, oh, back to the drawing board, that kind of up and down. It's frustrating. And then adding that element of the digital world is if and most people are I think in the majority of people that are dating are on apps or dating sites. um so there's that element of that's how you tend to meet people is through technology, and then it's weeding through messages, spending all that time reading profiles, sending messages. Maybe you get a reply, maybe you don't. And then that build up to let's schedule a meeting. It's a lot, right? It feels like
It really is. It
either
really
a
is.
part-time or maybe even a full-time job.
It's so true.
Um, uh, so there's that extra piece, right? Of not only like, is this person who they say they are? Right? Is this picture from the last decade? of, um, are they really, being honest? Then you have to like, okay, I have to consider safety and meeting them somewhere in public and not going too fast. And so there is that added element. And obviously some people choose to maybe just meet in more traditional ways through friends, a matchmaker potentially, and not use the digital world. But probably most people that are hearing this are.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
So that adds that extra layer of difficulty.
Well, it sounds like there's like almost access to more possible partners, but that whole process in and of itself can be overwhelming. So managing the access, yeah. Mhm.
Absolutely. And there is something to almost like I tell people, like kind of titrate it or filter it, like spend half an hour a day or an hour a day and set aside time to look at profiles and respond to messages and send messages instead of it just being like an open faucet, right? Or,
Mhm.
fire hose, that you have a containment around how often you're checking messages.
Great advice. Yeah.
Um, and there's something to the overwhelm of choice. Like when people have too much choice, it actually kind of shuts them down. So there's some research, I think it was out of Columbia University, um, just around like the option of choice. So this woman, Sheena Iyengar, did a research study, and this didn't have anything to do with dating, by the way. This is just literally about choice. So it was like in a supermarket where you have samples, right?
Yeah.
So it's like just jam, jelly, So it would be like this huge display with like tons of options, 20 options versus a display with maybe like five options.
Mhm.
So I think the
Mhm.
people were 7 times more likely to choose from the smaller sample size
Mhm.
because it just didn't feel as overwhelming.
Mhm.
And so that's one thing to consider in that online dating world of like, it can feel overwhelming. And especially if you're, in a bigger city where you have more options, it can feel overwhelming.
Mhm.
So that's another reason I think why it's like, just set the expectation. Okay, this is like a part-time job. I'm going to spend an hour a day, feeding through messages and responding, and then I'm going to shut down my computer and go live my life. And maybe, that can help. So I don't know. Hopefully that
Yeah,
helps.
great. Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like compartmentalizing, like consciously choosing the time that you want to engage in it. Because it sounds like too, if you do it that way, you can come more grounded to the situation. Like if you're trying to respond to things off the side of your desk or amidst the busyness, it's like maybe you're not as grounded in your authentic being also. And so if we're thinking
Right.
about, being authentic in a communication and, attracting the right person or, engaging with the
Yeah.
person that's good for you, yeah, it would make sense to be in a more grounded state when you're doing that. That's incredible. Yeah, I like that.
Yep.
I'm going to use that. It's funny because I'm also single and I, I find I'm doing it off the side of the desk and it does, like it gets, my nervous system gets ramped
Uh,
up pretty quickly
yes.
around it all. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Um, uh, so most people like, and you've mentioned your work with couples. When we think about the Gottman method, we do think about its work with couples, and you've utilized it with couples over your experience. So, what are some of the ways that we can use the Gottman principles in dating lives before we're in a committed relationship?
Sure. Yeah. One thing that I really like to hit on is that we understand not only how the principles apply to couples, but to singles and just to being a person in the world. So, for example, we talk a lot about the importance of friendship, right? Responding to bids for connection, sharing fondness and admiration, deeply knowing people in your life by building love maps. That applies to just being, a sibling, a friend, a coworker. It kind of, we try to see it as that whole picture, not just how are you when you're dating or in a relationship. Um, so I think that helps. It helps me remember that, um, not just for in my relationship, but all my friendships, my family members, all that. So I think that's an important thing to consider, as we go through and teaching couples or singles about the levels and the principles.
Amazing. Yeah, it sounds like the folks that come to the retreat and do some of this lessons in love work that's offered, um, they can actually learn to deepen all of their relationships, not just that romantic partnership.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the Harvard study that came out recently that qualifies like the single greatest predictor of a satisfactory, fulfilled life is the quality of relationships. And so when we
Mhm.
tie that to, the Gottman method and this work, it's like this is the recipe on how to have a fulfilling life, really, that's great. Uh, so when we start to recognize early green flags or signs of emotional compatibility, what are some of the things that folks should think about on the single front?
Mhm. Yeah, so we have the signs of trustworthiness is one thing that we encourage people to keep in mind, and that Dr. Gottman learned that from his research on trustworthiness. So these are kind of like seems like no-brainers, right? Like
Yeah.
honesty, right? Don't trust somebody who lies to you or come up with excuses for why they're lying or why they lied. So honesty is huge. Transparency is another part of that. Just like if you're dating somebody and they're really kind of an open book of like over time, not on like the first date, but that they're inviting you to meet their friends and family and vice versa. They want to meet your friends and family that they're sharing, over time, again, appropriately, their what is their work life like? Who are their friends? What is their maybe childhood experiences like that they're sharing, right? That they're also accountable, that they show up kind of when they do we call it proof of alliance, right? It's like if I'm making promises, I'm going to follow through. I show up when I say I'm going to show up. I'm showing up, to be there for you when you need me, not only when I need something. So that kind of, we call it like proof of alliance and
Mhm.
accountability. And then, yeah,
Mhm.
ethical actions is another piece. Like, do you kind of line up morally and ethically with the
Mhm.
other person? So those are all, if those are all like check, 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 right? And
Mhm.
always
Mhm.
encourage people like keep that list, literally print it out, keep it handy. And when you're dating, you look at that
I love it.
like
I love
every
it.
day, like give a copy to your best friend or to your, friends. Hey, how's that, trustworthiness coming along? That those signs of trust. And he writes about that, Dr. Gottman, in What Makes Love Last. So
Mhm. Mhm.
um, that that's huge. And then some of the other, green flags around just, are they agreeable?
Mhm.
That's kind of a personality characteristic or trait that is really important. Like that they're kind of open, flexible, agreeable. Not that they're like a doormat. That's not what I mean at all. But just kind of oh yeah, okay, well that makes sense and that could work. That agreeableness is important. I mean, I could go on and on, but I think those are the signs of trust. And we do talk a lot in the lessons in love and at the retreat about other signs of like a trustworthy person
Mhm.
and people who are safe emotionally. Like I know that's it's kind of a broad term, but when somebody's safe, like for example, they are able to honor your boundaries or your, limits and with respectfully versus demanding
Mhm.
demanding them. Or like if you need to, let's say, take things slowly with intimacy,
Mhm.
that they would be respectful of that and kind of like, I get it, no problem. We'll take it slow. I can wait. Versus if you really loved me, you would, or if you really cared about me, we, that's something that is like that would be a red flag versus a green flag of somebody who's willing to accept your boundaries, honor your boundaries, who can also admit when they're wrong,
Mhm.
take
Absolutely.
accountability, and then change their behavior. Like it's
Mhm.
not just an empty apology, but a truly like, you know what, it makes sense. I apologize that happened. I'm gonna work on that behavior and actually follow through versus just empty promises. So those are just
Really great. Yeah, so
yeah,
many good nuggets there for sure.
go.
Well, and I think what I'm hearing too is like it's also to run your own behaviors against some of these strategies is really important, because like
Yeah,
if I'm not showing up in a way that's taking accountability for my actions or following through on my word or whatever it is, how like how can I ever expect that from somebody else? Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
oh, very true. Yep. Very, very true. Because that's like that sense of like, am I displaying what I want? Then that can be mirrored back to me.
Love
Okay,
it.
I need to be a safe, emotionally safe person who's vulnerable and open. Um, so that's a good point.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, and another piece that I heard you say there was around this, give someone you trust, give someone you love the list so that you can run through it a little bit of objectively with them to understand, if these are healthy behaviors. Because what is kind of happening when you're in those early stages of meeting somebody in order to cloud that?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's something called the oxytocin haze, which,
Okay.
yeah, kind of it makes you more trusting and less likely to recognize, shady behavior, or red flags. So that basically is in those early stages or in the early stage of dating. It's that we call it limerence, which is a fancy way of saying like the honeymoon phase, the lust phase, where, yeah, you just all you think about is like, oh, I can't wait to be with them, and I love the way they smell, and everything they do is perfect, and I can't wait to be with them, which is great, right? That's an important part of falling in love, and it does make you more trusting and less likely to see or really take to heart those kind of, oh, I don't know, that was kind of a shady or a red flag. So that's why I think it helps to have that other perspective of a friend, of, a sibling, a family member who can kind of really like, let's check this out.
Mhm.
What's going on? Like, are you seeing these signs of trust, or are you seeing signs of maybe this isn't an emotionally safe person?
Really cool. Yeah, be aware of that limerence phase in the beginning. Again, it's not to dismiss it, like you said. It's those are some really nice feelings to have, and they are, a great part of the beginning
Yeah.
of relationships. So, not denying them, but getting some assistance in looking at things a little bit more objectively. Also, yeah, I like that. Either like through your own notes or assistance with a trusted friend. Yeah.
Yeah, because it does really, and taking it slow. I think that's the other piece I would say is, hey,
Mm,
don't rush into something, because that is where you could just like whoosh, oh, this is my person. We're going to get married. It's only been 2 months or 3 months, or we're moving in together, or then it's like, whoa, let's slow this down, right? There is no rush. Really
mhm,
get to know this person before you make any actual commitment of, sharing, finances, or moving in together, or getting
yeah.
married. Um, there's yeah, there's something to that with taking it slow, and that limerence phase that I talked about is, it's like 6 months, a year, depends on the circumstances, the stages that you're in life. It's different for everyone, but knowing that, I think giving it, that year really before you're making any big decisions, to deeply know somebody, and that over time that allows you to really see, can I trust this person? Are they going to show
Mhm,
up for me when I need them? Do they have my back? um so that I think is important. And this is a interesting piece of advice, but I think it's true. Travel with that person.
yes.
Yeah, see what they're like when
Mhm,
maybe they don't get their way or things get difficult.
yeah.
See how they respond. And is, it really is true. I worked
Mhm,
with a woman recently who she was dating somebody for about 6 months, and they were going on a pretty big trip together. And, we were talking a lot leading up to that and working together. And she was thinking, like, he might propose on this trip and I might say yes, and we'll see how it goes. That trip did not go well.
Okay.
Um, you know, he showed, that he was not in the emotionally safe category, not trustworthy. So that was yeah, you know what? That was a sign, right? That this is not somebody you want to really commit to long term. So that was a good travel. Long story short.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Travel, pacing, I heard, slowing it down. It's possibly one of the largest decisions of someone's life. Like sometimes we seem that we have to rush into it for some reason, but like it's almost like a little bit of like take the emotion out of it. This is almost like a business decision too. So it's like
Yeah.
slow it down so that you can see the things that are in alignment with healthy, not only healthy behaviors, but what you want in your own life. Yeah.
Right. What you want. Yep.
So some of yeah, this is one of my favorite questions right now, especially in this age, and I'll say that our our target group in this retreat is we're targeting ages 35 to 65. So probably had about like one significant relationship under your belt. That's kind of the subgroup of people we're working with, and so um, you know there's, I guess, at any time there can be a level of sexual activity and like understanding when to introduce sex into relationships. And so you you commented there on moving slowly. So how can that translate to introducing a sexual relationship? Is there a magic time in your professional expert opinion of to when to introduce sex? That inevitable age-old question.
Yeah. Great question. There's not a magic number, but one thing that is important to know is when you are intimate with somebody, when you have sex or sexual interaction, there's that release of dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin, especially the oxytocin, because that's bonding, right? That's a kind of a bonding hormone. And so with that, you have to know, like, that could accelerate that, bonding and limerence and lust of like, now we're connected and now I am in that phase deeply. So just as long as you go into it knowing that, right, that you're not just blindly, oh, it's just physical, but it inevitably, for most people, also creates like a bonding and attachment and an emotional piece. So if you know that going into it, that's helpful. And then, I have seen and heard stories where maybe people they kind of did this in reverse. For example, they're on Tinder and maybe they hooked up. It was more just literally a hookup of like, but that, one night stand or that hookup actually led to a long-term, amazing partnership.
Mhm.
So there's no like one right way, but I think as long as people know and understand that if you're really looking for that committed, or you're dating to commit or marry, and that physical intimacy does introduce that bonding and the emotional piece. So as long as you're
Mhm.
prepared for that and ready for that, and that you've also maybe talked and agreed to, for example, now I know everybody's in a different place with whether they are in a monogamous or non-monogamous or open or polyamorous, but as long as people go into the actual physical intimacy and sex with, hey, heads up, or an awareness and agreement, my understanding of, like, just use an example would be, if I'm going to go into that with somebody, there would be a agreement of like, we're monogamous. My expectation is that we are not seeing other people or sleeping with other people. And that's talked about. So it's not just assumed, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
or again, maybe it's both people are consenting to being in, more polyamorous and open. And then what does that look like? And what are the agreements there? So I think that, yeah, there's a lot to consider there. But that's some things to be aware of.
Yeah, so interesting. And oh, this one's kind of on the spot, so answer as you will. But I guess in that, just keeping in the theme of ethical non-monogamy, how does the Gottman method apply to that? And over time, does that, like, absolutely, it sounds like you're saying that as long as the lines of communication are open, that is something that can exist. And so have you had any experience, say, like working with people that have had success in that realm also? So, uh,
Yeah, and I'll just so caveat being the Gottman research is on, monogamous
Sure. Yeah.
long-term committed relationship with two
Yeah.
people. Right. But I've worked with couples using that framework and the understanding that, let's say, they are each other's kind of their primary relationship, right? But then they each have an agreement around non-monogamy or open, um, that there's an ability to, so hopefully, and one couple is coming to mind where they were married, so they absolutely were each other's primary related. They owned property together and they owned a house together. And then they each kind of had their understanding and agreements around, how, when and where would these other relationships happen. So with this couple, we used a framework called the art of compromise, or the
Cool.
compromise
Yeah.
ovals,
Mhm.
around, what are your deal breakers or your kind of non-negotiables, and then what are you open to or flexible about. So with that, they kind of were able to come to this agreement on, that would only happen when traveling, like they each traveled for work. And
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
and it was
Mhm.
only one time, there was never more than once with one person,
Mhm.
right? That it was, that there was some, I don't remember all the other kind of boundaries and limits, but that kind of agreement. Um, and then obviously we really were able to work on their primary relationship and their rituals of connection, their, friendship, their ability to manage conflict, as the, marital partners.
Really great, because yeah, that it definitely comes back to these are systems of relationshiping that can be applied to any model, and it largely is, transparency and honesty and trust, just building the foundations of any relationship.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really cool. So along those same lines too, this butterfly feeling, this chemistry feeling, what's going on there? I guess that's probably in the direction of limerancy.
Hmm.
Um, is that gut feeling, of that lighthearted butterfly feeling, is that a red or a green flag for somebody?
Oh, yeah. Depends on the, the circumstances and the each person's own kind of, history. So for example, the limerence and feeling like, oh, I can't wait to see this person. I'm so excited. I feel so good. It's like that rush of, it feels like a drug because it is like dopamine, serotonin. It's like that same pleasure center of the brain that gets released when you're using a drug. Um, so that is, again, that's that beautiful. Like I can just refer back to my husband and I, like that was, a beautiful, like it was just like in La La Land, right? For months and months. Um, and that was amazing. And being aware of, like taking it slow. We both had other really pretty painful relationships, so we were kind of bonding and talking and learning and growing together. Um, the thing to keep in mind with attraction, chemistry, the butterfly feeling is, if anybody who's listening to this, like if you come from a kind of chaotic or traumatic background,
Mhm.
even abusive, that butterfly feeling, that chemistry, it can feel like home. And
Hmm.
if home was dangerous, abusive, toxic, that could be, you're drawn to what you know, or there's that chemistry of like, oh, this feels like home, but that doesn't mean it's healthy. So I think that's an important thing if you are, and certainly a lot of people are from that kind of traumatic, painful, difficult upbringing, then being aware of that, like, is this truly somebody who sees me, who's safe, who I can trust, or is this just that feeling of home? And what does that
Wow.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah, really great there. Yeah, and I guess that's where, consulting with like a dating coach, dating therapist, like or a trusted friend, that's where that's really going to come in handy, because
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a time of dating where you really don't know if you can trust yourself even, kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a time where it's really important to um, really pay attention to your own um, your own boundaries, your own intuition. Um, and then if somebody is like example, we'll go back to boundaries or kind of like setting I'm not sure I'm really ready for a committed relationship right now, or I really want to take this slow, but the other person is really just almost like love bombing of like, no, you're the best person I've ever met. You're my person. We have to. Oh, you have to. And kind of almost like badgering of like, nope, this is I want this. I want this. I want. And then the other person might kind of inevitably cave of like, oh, okay, well, I guess, they really are like they say they really love me and I'm the only person they ever want to. Okay. And well, maybe I'll give them well, I guess I could give them a chance. And then that love bombing almost like wears them down. So that's just something to be super aware of and journaling actually can really help with that.
Well,
In
mhm.
addition to having a friend or an ally to really be talking with you all along the way, especially if you have a history of um, being prone to kind of getting sucked into those more toxic or chaotic relationships, because again, that's just what you know.
Mhm.
There's a way to get out of that loop. So, mm,
So writing out the pattern, writing out what had happened that day kind of thing, those can be valuable.
yeah, feelings all along the way of like when like first date. How did I really feel when I
Mhm.
was with that person? Um, what was I experiencing and noticing? Do I want to continue on to a second date? Okay, well, maybe I'll give them a chance. Second date, what was that like? What were their behaviors? How was I feeling when I was with them? So just, yeah, kind of, and then going back to that journal.
Mhm. Mhm. Rereading your own notes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. What happened then? Yes, I
yeah,
love it.
yeah,
Your own biography of the relationship.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I noticed that some of my clients, they're like, I get what you're saying, and like we'll run it through this lens. This is the healthy lens. And in theory, I'm dating quite a bit, like not like I know Dr. John Gottman, the way he went on 60 dates, and like I don't know how for over how long or what that looked like, and then he eventually married Dr. Julie Gottman, who is his research partner of and spouse of 35 years. And so it like a lot of my clients are looking at this and being like, I'm going to have to tell a lot of people that I'm not interested. And so what does that kind of like what does rejecting, let's use that R word, or like telling somebody that they're not a match with you actually look like in a healthy
Hmm.
way?
Yeah. Um, so and I think this is what everybody wants, right? When we've done the singles workshop, we would do polls and people would like type in their answer. It's like, so if you went on a date with somebody and just wasn't a match, how would you want to get that information from them? Like if they felt like you weren't a match for them. Everybody says, like, I want to just know that. I want to hear it versus just being ghosted or somebody being like, I'm going to go to the bathroom and then they never come back, right? Everybody wants that, but then it's really hard to be the one that says it if you're not feeling like it's a match. So I think just have your own verbiage that you're, comfortable with of like, you know, you are, I really enjoyed spending some time with you. I don't think it's a match. I just don't think that we're a fit. uh, have a good life, right? Or like,
Yeah, it can be
I
as
wish
simple as
yeah,
that.
literally,
Yeah, yeah.
I wish you all the best. And just to be clear, direct, assertive, and it doesn't have to be more than that of just like, well, I'm not sure, and gosh, let me think about it, and okay, I'll get back to you. But just to kind of say, like, you seem like a really great person, but I don't think that we're the right fit for each other. That's it. So just to kind of maybe even practice that, like say it in the mirror, say it, practice it in the car when you're driving by yourself, uh,
Love it.
because it is going to be, and sometimes that might happen the other way, right? That you have to be open to like, okay, well, maybe I'm not the right person for
Very
you,
true.
right?
Mhm.
Because there's so much to that, whether it's values, beliefs, literally physical, chemistry, all that. There's a lot that plays into it. So um, it is a numbers game.
Yeah,
No,
this
that's
is what I'm realizing
yeah,
really,
yeah,
because there are a lot of unhealthy patterns that exist out there, and there are, people who don't want to work on them. And so to find the people that want to work on what relationship health looks like, you got to just go through quite a number of people probably. That's kind of what
Yeah.
I'm seeing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's and like you said, I think in that, especially if you're, say, going at partnership a little bit aggressively, or you have a timeline in your own mind that you wanna, like, satisfy, I think that's where it really comes in handy to compartmentalize, like you said, like, keep it, I'll respond to messages from 7 to 8 on Mondays and Wednesdays or whatever, like that kind of, because it can become all encompassing there too. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, if it's like too aggressive, then it could go into this rushing phase too, where you're not necessarily seeing all of the the things that you want to see, like we've talked about. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, I'd like to just ask you a few questions. You've steeped in this Gottman work. You're an expert trainer. I'm lucky enough to have taken the Lessons in Love singles training from Stacy, and worked with her closely over the last year or so, on this beautiful singles work. And how did you go about actually, implementing this in your own life and finding your partner?
Mm. Yeah, so I love talking about this. So when I met my husband, we actually were friends for, I think it was 2 or 3 years, like quite a while. And we both worked out at the same CrossFit gym, which is we had a pretty small, tight-knit community there, right? Like we live in this kind of smaller community in this, kind of rural area. And so we all got to know each other. And I'll be honest, at that point, I had kind of given up on finding partnership. Um, I had gone off on and off dating sites. Nothing was clicking, and so I kind of was just like, you know what? I have a good life, right? I have my own house, I have a career, I have my family, I have my friends, I have my dogs. I'm good.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
If it happens, it happens, but I am not really seeking it out.
Mhm.
So again, I was working out a lot at the gym, and my partner, my husband and I, we were friends. We'd go to group events, we would go to movies, we would go axe throwing, concerts. So that's kind of where we started really, like, we like the same kind of music. So we'd end up going to the same concerts and either going in a group or running into each other. So that was kind of this slow, and then like over time, he eventually was like, you know what, let's hang out, like just the two of us. So that kind of was like, it took me a while. I was like, are we going on a date? Right? He asked me to go to a comedy show with him and just the two of us. And I was like, oh, this is different. This is not a group event. I think we're really on a date. Um, and so, he was really respectful, because I was kind of like, I'm not sure if I don't know if I want this. I'm not ready. And he was really respectful. He was like, I'm really interested in you. I think we have, I think we could be really great together. I'm not going anywhere. So I'm here, and let's just keep talking, but whenever you're ready. So he was really sweet, respectful, and really was, taking his time. And so, yeah, we from there just kind of slowly did a couple more events together, and dates together. And then it's like, you know what? Let's give it a go, right?
Mhm,
I
mhm.
I know you, like I've known you for years. I trust you. Let's give it a shot. So that's kind of the evolution of it. And yeah, here we are now.
Really beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great. And like this sense of, you being satisfied already in your life, you
Yeah.
were like, if it comes in, that's great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. I have the things that like fulfill me. And then what I also heard was like kind of tying in that transparency stuff. You got to know him in a social context too, where there was a lot of groups that without expectation of relationship, because I
Yeah.
think when we get to meet people in that expectation space, you start maybe behaving a little bit differently because there is this possibility of relationship. So you guys
Yeah.
got to know each other a little bit more in
Mhm.
like perhaps like without that expectation. Yeah.
Totally.
Really cool. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. And and I guess too in that it's like put yourself in spaces that you enjoy and then there might
Yeah.
be other people that like the same things as you kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, like being healthy, kind of
Yes.
lifestyle choices of being fit, and so that's very true. And then also with that kind of slow evolution of like, oh, we're at the same concert. Oh, you like this kind of music too. So that was another just like slow evolution of that. But yeah, absolutely, yeah, putting yourself in like settings where maybe you're part of a group or a club that is part of your value, whatever that means, gardening, hiking, a political group, a photography class, something where it's your interest, you're already there, and then
Mhm,
you're
mhm,
slowly kind of open. And I think part of it is that just openness to, because
mhm.
that's a good way to meet people in real life. And then obviously some people need to also have that balance of having being on apps and being open to meeting people in just
In real life,
in real
yeah.
life. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like the more options you have, the better, right? So
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and the apps, like, yes, they might be efficient, but it's definitely harder to get a sense of who someone is when you're reading them on a
yeah,
screen, with some pictures and a description versus,
yeah,
getting the feel for who they are in the social context or, in something they enjoy or and that kind of thing. And I
mhm,
like how too finding similar interests is, tied to rituals. I've been thinking a lot about rituals too, where it's like those consistent, habitual type actions are the behaviors of love, recognize love through behaviors. So when you find those similar interests, you can definitely build on that in some ritual connective spaces too. Yeah,
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
really cool stuff. Well, we are almost rounding out on the hour here, and so I'll tell you a little bit about this fantastic retreat, and then we'll get Stacy to weigh in on what some of the content we can expect. So we are going out to the Kananaskis Mountain Lodge and Nordic Spa in the spectacular Kananaskis, Alberta. Um, Kananaskis Mountain Lodge is this, standalone resort in Kananaskis. It basically is the town of Kananaskis. Kananaskis country is an expansive area where there's tons of hiking and stuff like that in the Alberta Rockies. But this resort specifically is kind of down its own road. We have this beautiful, exclusive environment. And what I love about that is you can kind of remove yourself from the noise of like back in the city or wherever you're coming from and really get clear on what it is that you want and then also check in with what is healthy because again a lot of us are in these unhealthy patterns and we kind of just need to bit of a slap in the face to pull us out of it a little bit. So got the spectacular outdoor space or outdoors to explore. We're going to be at the Nordic Spa private spa party on the Saturday night. We've got some wellness activities, and of course, Stacy's coming in. And if you want to know how to do relationships, I am very confident that Stacy can help, and we're gonna really lean into that in this retreat. You can check out some more details in the comments. But from a content perspective, Stacy, what can folks expect? We're coming in. They will have taken the lessons in love class, which is also a Gottman singles class that you had a part in creating,
yeah,
and so we'll come with that intel. And then, so how will we build on that?
yeah. Great question. So we'll be expanding on that content and deepening it as well. So for example, in that Lessons in Love, the basic course, there's not a lot of talk or content around sex and intimacy. So we will talk and do a module on that. We'll be talking about just more awareness of self. We're going to explore something called the emotional command systems, which is a really cool way to kind of understand, yourself in also in context of relationship. we'll have a lot more time also to deepen into like must-haves in deal breakers for each participant in terms of what are they really looking for? What are their values? What are they really looking for in a partner? And to get really clear on that. So you can go into dating with that awareness. We'll have also time to deepen into and a lot more group activity and group, small group interaction around like roles, rituals, beliefs, values, some of those deeper parts of like yourself really. And what are you looking for in terms of a partner to be a part of your life? So I think there's a lot of opportunity for new content, but also a lot of deepening of what's in the current course of
Mhm.
Lessons in Love, and a lot more time to be,
Love it.
in small group, in a lot more interaction. Because what I've seen, especially with the in-person classes and retreats and activities, is people really feel a connection, right? If you're in the same boat with somebody, like single, dating, camaraderie, building friendship, even if it's there may be hopefully opportunity for romantic relationships potentially, but also friends who are in the same boat.
Mhm.
So getting to know each other deeply, a lot of time to connect.
Really great. And the more that folks can, get in that energy of what healthy interaction and transacting and relational aptitude, that's how you referred to it at one point, to get in that kind of understanding, the more you can, leave the retreat and then actually implement it into your real life and even stay connected to folks from the retreat if you make some new friends. Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I ask one final question on the Country Cabin Retreats What is Love podcast to each of my guests. So Stacy, I ask you, what is love? Tell me about a time that you experienced love.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oof. Let's see. There's so many. I mean, luckily I have a very caring and loving mother who I still spend a lot of time with. And so I could go into a lot of stories there. But in terms of with my partner and my husband, he is so, I mean, he's so sweet on so many levels. I'm trying to think of one thing that really stands out. That he's, he'll just kind of walk up, and if he knows I've had a tough day, kind of rub my shoulders and rub my back and give me a kiss and just say, I love you. I'm so happy to be with you. Just those small moments, like we have a saying in the Gottman
Beautiful.
Method, like small things often, right? So
Yes.
it really is more about those small moments than a big, like, I got you this fancy blah blah gift. Those small moments, or just like a text in the middle of the day. I'm like, hey, I know you didn't sleep well. I'm thinking of you. Hope you have a good rest of the day. Just those kind of gestures. So I think, you know, small things often, I guess, is the answer there.
Small things often. What a great place to leave that. I love it. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Stacey. And thanks for being on. And yes, I'll drop that link in the comments if you would like to come on the Nordic Spa Singles Retreat with us. I'm Carrie from Country Cabin Retreats. Thanks so much for listening. And today and every day, we invite you to choose love. Thank you so much for listening to the Country Cabin Retreats podcast. Know that you're making a difference in the world just by seeking out information that helps you have better relationships, because it affects those around you. If you'd like more information on our retreats for singles and couples, please check out Country Cabin Retreats on the web or Facebook and Instagram. Like and subscribe to receive notifications for podcasts such as this that continue to support you in your healthy relationships journey. Today and every day, we invite you to choose love.